Hi guys, my name is Christa. This is Core by Christa's Bodyweight Series. It's a 12-class series that focuses on resetting your body, connecting you to your core, and building functional strength. Class structure is 5 minutes of learning, and then we will apply that knowledge through movement for about 40 to 45 minutes. If this is your first time meeting with me, I suggest you start with day 1. If you're back from day 2, welcome back. Let's get started. Alright guys, class is in session. Today we're going to focus on our joints, joint health, and why that's important for movement. So really a joint is just when two bones come together. And we're not going to talk super specific because you have a lot of different types of joints and you will have a lot of joints in your body, right? You have over 300 joints in your body. So we're going to talk more general about our joints and how joint health is really important for your overall wellness and for proper movement. So we're going to focus on your toes, your ankles, your knees, your hip complex, your spine, your fingers, wrists, shoulders, that flat bone in the back, your scapula, and your head and neck. That's where we're going to focus our movement today, and that's what we're going to focus on generally when we talk about our joints. So where we're going to start with class is we're going to start by talking about the difference between flexibility and mobility. So flexibility is in relation to your muscles, and your muscles, specifically your muscles rather, and your muscles have a resting length, but they also have the ability to lengthen and contract and shorten. And when we're talking about flexibility, we're talking about the ability of a muscle or group of muscles to passively lengthen through a range of motion. Okay, so we're talking about just one muscle or a muscle group and its ability to passively lengthen through a range of motion when we're talking about flexibility. Mobility, on the other hand, is specific to your joints. So your joints' ability to move dynamically through a range of motion. So this is going to be a combination of various muscles at that particular joint that help that joint move. And I'm going like this because I'm thinking about our hip complex, right? Because a lot of us sit a lot, which ends up creating less space. We get short and tight through our anterior chain, our quads, our hip flexors, psoas is a big one. And when we have tight and short muscles, it can limit our ability to move through a range of motion at our joint. So it can decrease our mobility. So they really go hand in hand, okay? But when we're talking about mobility, which is what we'll be working on today, we're talking about the joint and its ability to move through a particular range of motions. Now, why is this important for our movement, okay? Your joints should be mobile, and when they're not mobile and when there's restricted movement, you end up getting the movement anyways, right? But you just stress either above or below that joint. So let's go back to your hip complex, and let's say you sit a lot and you're tight, your quads are tight, those muscles in their thigh in the front, your hip flexors are tight. And what happens when that happens, right? So what happens when I'm in flexion is the muscles shorten my anterior chain to keep me in flexion, and over time, if I don't then lengthen those muscles, if I don't work on flexibility in those muscles, they can stay in that shortened state. And so what that can do is totally, so if this is short, it can totally rotate my pelvis, right? It also can create a lot of trouble in terms of you moving throughout your hip complex. You get the movement anyways, right? You move throughout your day, you keep moving. So where do you get that movement from? You usually stress above or below your hip complex. So a lot of us, our knees start bothering us, or our back starts bothering us, or we have injury either above or below that joint, right? Or even in that joint because muscles are being overworked that usually wouldn't have that great of load, right? Because we have limited motion in our hips. So that's why it's so important. Holistically speaking, mobility and joint health is one of the key components in the fundamentals of your movement. So that's why it's class number 2, and that's why we're focusing on it today. So we're gonna start moving now. We'll start with some reset movements, and even in our reset movements, right, we're moving at our joint, we're moving our head and neck, we're rocking back and forth. So all of those things, our reset movements, are helping our joints be well. So let's start on your bellies. Prop yourself up on your elbows, lengthen through those legs. So elbows are gonna be under your shoulders. I want you to spread those fingertips wide. Again, we'll do some deep, deep breaths using your diaphragm. So move with your breath and lead with your eyes. We'll lead with our eyes, look up, breathe in, let that belly fully expand. Exhale through your nose and move chin to chest. Lead with your eyes as we move. So you're just gonna go at your own pace. Maybe you want to take a few breaths. Maybe you feel tight in your neck. You feel a little restricted, and you want to just stay there and take a few breaths. That's okay. Listen to your body. Start to notice where you feel tension. Try to breathe through that tension. Restricted movement is different than painful movement, right? So I don't want it to be painful. I want you to move through a pain-free range of motion. And as we move, we'll create some more space in our joints. Do a couple more and then we'll look to our toes. Now look over your shoulder. Look towards your feet. Breathe in. Let that belly fully expand. Exhale and move. Other shoulder. Again, go at your own pace. Maybe you're going slower than me. That's okay. Go as slow as you need to go. Read with your eyes, look towards those toes. Breathe in through your nose. Using your diaphragm. Exhale through your nose and move. Get some ants. Last one, we'll come up to our hands and our knees. So press yourself up to your hands and your knees. We'll do our rocking. Remember, our butt is coming over our heels. Our shoulders are over our wrists. Butt over your heels, shoulders over your wrists. So right here, spread those fingertips wide. Move through a pain-free range of motion. So we spend a lot of time like this on a computer, on our phones. So this might feel a little hard for you because we spend a lot like this, or it might be painful or restricted. So just gently move shoulders over your wrists. And again, the more we move, the more we'll create space in our joints. Wrist, shoulders over your wrists, butt over your heels. Do a couple more. And then we're gonna crawl. So go back to that baby crawl, just a few crawls forward, a few crawls back. Just go at your own pace and move in whatever space you have. Keep tension in your midsection. You're moving opposite arm, opposite leg. So one more time. Okay, lay yourself back down. We're gonna do that again. So lead with your eyes, move at your own pace. We will head nod. This time through, take a few deep breaths in each position. In through your nose, out through your nose. Let that belly fully expand. Exhale and move. Take a few deep breaths. And then just move, and we'll go. Look over your shoulders. Same thing. Take a few deep breaths. What feels good for your body. We'll do a couple more. Then come back up to your hands and your knees. This time through, you can stick with that rocking, shoulders over your wrists, butt over your heels, or you can go elevated, so hover those knees off the ground and rock. Spread those fingertips wide. Butt over your heels, shoulders over your wrists, back and forth. So again, you could always just stay right here. You could play around with your feet. You could turn your feet in, you could turn your feet out. You could point your toes and do the same thing, or you could elevate those knees. Keep tension in your core. Do a few more. Maybe you want to slow it down. Play around with speed, play around with your feet position. Last one, we'll go back to that crawling. So you can stick right here on the baby crawl, opposite arm, opposite leg, or you could leopard crawl. So hover those knees off the ground, just a few crawls forward and a few crawls back. Opposite arm, opposite leg. So we're moving contralateral. And last time, down and back. All right, let's come all the way back down. Fold your hands over top of each other. Take a few deep breaths from here. In through your nose, let that belly fully expand, using your diaphragm.
But the problem was also, in addition to it doing good things, did some really bad things. Use a complicated
Just take one more breath in through your nose, let that belly fully expand.
But what you did that was bad, terrible.
All right, roll yourself over. So we're gonna start with our neck. Actually, we already did a little bit with our neck because we did our head nods, but we're just gonna move on our backs. And I just want you to rotate side to side. So palms up, drop those shoulders away from your ears. You're just gonna move side to side. Again, move at your own pace. Whoop, little ant. Move with your breath. Maybe you want to close your eyes this time. This might feel easy for you, or you might feel tension throughout your neck and shoulders. That's okay. Just move through a pain-free motion and make note of where you feel tight. Now I want you to draw that chin to your chest, look towards your toes. We're gonna hold here. And slow as you can, come down. We'll go back to nodding side to side. You wanna hold Drop those shoulders away from your ears. Exhale and move. This time through, when you draw that chin to your chest, I want you to also draw those knees in. We'll take a few breaths here, so that pelvic floor diaphragm breathing. Chin to chest, tailbone off the ground, in through your nose, let that belly fully expand. Out through your nose. Take one more breath, and then we'll do some slow and controlled rolling. So roll up, control, back and forth. Go one more, and then we'll lay back down on the ground. Slowly rock yourself down. And then we're gonna do some shoulder sweeping. So I want you to let those knees fall to one side. Hands are gonna be out in front of you. If you need a pillow for your head, or if you need a pillow for your knees. If this feels like too much on your low back, you can just grab a pillow and put it under your knees. You're gonna make a big sweep up by your ear. So this top hand is coming all the way up. Keep that shoulder away from your ear, and you're gonna rotate. So once I get up above my head, I'll show you sitting up. So once I get up above my head, I'm gonna turn that palm up and keep rotating all the way around. A big sweep and a big sweep back. As slow as I need to go. So I'm gonna do that on the ground. My back stays flat. So your scapula, that flat bone in the back, I want you to keep that and your hand in contact with the ground, okay? I also don't want you to get your shoulder up by your ear. So especially as things get hard and we come overhead, sometimes we then lift up that shoulder to create more space and to get more movement. So instead of raising your shoulder, keep that shoulder back and down. So we're gonna do this from a sideline position. So again, draw those knees into your chest, stack them on top. A big sweep. So once it's over my head, I'm gonna turn that palm up. And as I come around, I'm gonna keep that arm and shoulder on the ground. Maybe you feel little sticking points. You can just pause and take a deep breath before you start moving again. So I'm going to turn to the other side. Stay on that side. I'll show you what that looks like from the other side. So come up, around, big sweep, and back. Big sweep. So go at your own pace. Maybe you feel tight right here. Keep that shoulder away from your ear. Maybe you'll take a few breaths before you keep moving. We're focusing on big sweeping of our shoulder. Last one, we'll do the other side. So draw those knees back into your chest. Ooh, roll over if you have the space. I'm into the leaves here. We'll do the same thing other side. Big sweep. So go at your own pace. Remember, keep those shoulders away from your ears. So as I come overhead, I'm not raising up. I'm keeping that shoulder back and down the whole time. My shoulder blades in contact with the ground. Do a couple more here, and then we'll go back to that slow and controlled controlled rolling. Let's go, one more. You might feel a little bit crunchy. I know that's a weird word to describe, but that's really an accurate way to describe sometimes how we move. You might feel a little bit crunchy. We're going back to those slow and controlled rolls, but that's okay. We're working through some things that are tight. Sometimes we have a little scar tissue around our joints from previous injuries. Slow and controlled rolling. It's okay if you're a little crunchy. If it's painful though, we don't want that. So, pain-free motion always. Let's go one more and then we're gonna hold at the top. So hover those feet, drop those shoulders away from your ears. Core is engaged. Almost. 3, 2, and 1. All right, come up to your hands and your knees. So from here, shoulders under your wrists, spread those fingers, or wrists under your shoulders, spread those fingertips wide, knees under your hips. So we're gonna do some scap squeezes. So it's hard to see with my shirt on, but those two flat bones on your back are called your scapula. And so I want you to drop your shoulders away from your ears and try to pinch those shoulder blades together. Pinch those together from this position. So drop those shoulders, core stays engaged, squeeze, 2, 3, and then we're gonna retract. So squeeze, 2, 3, and then you're gonna retract those shoulders. So almost round them a little bit. Squeeze, 2, 3, retract, squeeze, 2, 3, retract. So move at your own pace, but you're gonna squeeze, drop those shoulders away from your ear, pinch those shoulder blades together, keep that core engaged. Hold it, 2, 3, and then you can round those shoulders, press through those hands. We'll do one more, squeeze, 2, 3, and then round. All right, we're just gonna cat-cow it out. So we're gonna move our spine. Draw that chin to your chest, round your spine, look in towards your belly. Drop those shoulders away from your ears. Try to move every single vertebrae. Drop those shoulders up to the ceiling or the sky if you're outside. Move at your own pace. Maybe you want to rock around a bit. Maybe you want to look towards your toes or your feet. Alright, come back to neutral. Take a step back. We're going to hold a high plank. Drop those shoulders away from your ears. Squeeze your butt. Squeeze your legs. So you're thinking about keeping that line between my head and my tailbone. Create as much tension as you can. Almost. And then we're gonna, as slow as you can, elbows into your side, lower yourself all the way down to the ground. Prop yourself up on your elbows. Do a few head nods. Maybe look over towards the toes. And then we'll roll to our side and do those shoulder sweeps again. So we're gonna start from there. We'll start from our shoulder sweep. So stay on one side, draw those knees into your chest, arms out in front of you. We're sweeping that top arm up. Once it reaches above head, turn that hand palm over and continue that sweep all the way around. Shoulder blade stays on the ground, and so does your hand. As much as possible, keep that shoulder away from your ear. Up, over, big sweep. Do a couple more. Last one, and we'll do the other side. All right, roll yourself to the other side. We'll do the same thing. So let those knees fall, hands out to the side. Use a pillow as you need. If you need a pillow under your knees or your head, but a big shoulder sweep up and around. Couple more. Go as slow as you need to go. Maybe you have a sticking point and you just want to hold it and take a few breaths. That's okay. Listen to your body. Let's go one more, and then we'll go back to that slow and controlled rolling. All right. Control the way up. Roll back. You can use your hands if you need. Or you could go no hands. Drop those shoulders away from your ears. One more, and you're gonna hold. As much tension as you can. If you need to drop your heels, you can. Keep that proud chest, keep that lean back, lift up out of your pelvis. Maybe you want to challenge yourself and straighten those legs. Almost 3, 2, and 1. All right. We'll come back to our hands and our knees. So back to those scap squeezes. So you could stay right here with those scap squeezes, or you could also do them from a high plank position. So remember, you're dropping those shoulders away from your ears, pinching those shoulder blades together, and then we'll retract, we'll round those shoulders. Press through those hands. So your focus of your movement is right here, those flat bones, your scapula, and throughout that region of your body. Pinch those shoulder blades together and press through your hands and round. We'll do a couple more, and then we'll do our whole spine cat-cow. Alright. Move and flow through some cat-cow. So we're focusing on moving every part of our vertebrae. Move with your breath, looking to the ceiling. Drop those shoulders away from your ears, and then you're going to move one vertebrae at a time as slow as you can. Look in towards your belly, press to those hands, round your spine. And again, you might not look like me. I have limited motion in my thoracic spine. You might feel tighter than me. You might move more fluid than me. That's okay. this movement practice is for you. It looks different for me than it does for you, and that's okay. All right, let's go one more. Back to neutral. Take a step out. Squeeze your butt. Squeeze your legs. We're holding that plank position. Drop those shoulders away from your ears so my line from my head to my tailbone. Back is flat. Maybe you want to lift and lower one leg at a time. Keeping those hips and shoulders square. Keeping that butt low. Maybe you just want to hold a plank. Create as much tension as you can through your body. 3, 2, and slowly lower yourself all the way down. Prop yourself up on your elbows. We'll look to our feet. Couple more, and then we'll come back up to our hands and our knees. All right, so come up to your hands and your knees. We're gonna focus on our hip complex right now. So your hip is a ball and socket joint, which means, and your pelvis is the socket. This looks like that. Your femur, your hip bone up here, your leg bone, fits into it. It has a ball at the end, fits in, so it rotates in the socket. And so think about that as we rotate our hip. So those slow, controlled, articular rotations, we're gonna do them at our hips. So wrists under your shoulders, knees under your hips. We'll go into our tabletop position. We're gonna move our hip without compensating. And we're gonna work that end range of motion. So hips and shoulders stay square, back is flat. So again, if you feel like you're starting to rotate or you can't get a feel for it, give yourself feedback, put a book on your back, something so you could feel when your hips are shifting or when your back is arching. So I don't want you to arch your back to create more space. So keep those hips tucked under. You're gonna just reach up as far as you can, and wherever your end range of motion is. So that's kind of my end range of motion without rotating my hips or arching my back. So back stays flat. I'm just gonna give it a little extra effort before I keep rotating around. So then I'll take my knee out to the side. Same thing, without arching my back or rotating my hips. I'm gonna give it a little extra effort at that end range of motion, and I'm gonna do that all the way around that big hip circle, slow and controlled. Just like that. So you'll come back as far as you can without arching your back, right? And so I don't want to see that. Keep those hips tucked under. That's about as far as I can go. I'm gonna give it a little extra effort, really work. And then I'm gonna do that at each point. Keep those hips tucked under. Don't let those hips rotate out. I'm gonna give that little extra effort at that end range of motion all the way around. So this should feel hard, and it should be super slow. You should feel like you're going in slow-mo at your hip. And notice where you feel restriction in that motion. And that'll tell you where you're tight and weak. And as we move slowly and controlled around in that way, we're lengthening the muscles that need to be lengthened, and we're strengthening the muscles that need to be strengthened at that joint. So we're focusing mostly on our hip right now. Well, we are focusing on our hip right now, and this is an area where a lot of us have limited mobility, limited range of motion because of how we move throughout our day. We sit a lot, we get tight and weak, and so we're gonna focus on our hips. So keep going in one direction as slow as you need to go, really working that end range of motion. Hips and shoulders stay square. We'll do a couple more, and then we're gonna go the opposite direction. So just recheck yourself, right? So if you notice that you're starting to arch your back, check yourself. Maybe you want to put your hand on your belly to remind you to brace your core. Maybe you want to put a book on your back so you can feel your hips shifting. We'll go one more. Go super slow and controlled. And then we're gonna do the opposite way. So bring that knee in, you're gonna come out. That's about as far as I can go. Okay, my external rotation, abduction of my hip is a little tight, little limited, okay? That's as far as I can go. Give it a little extra effort, and then I'm gonna keep rotating around. Super slow and controlled. Same thing, keep those hips tucked under. We'll do a few more, maybe like 3 more. Really, really slow. Take a break if you need to. Shake it out. Let's go 1 more, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Alright, I'm gonna flip over so you can see me, but we'll do the same thing. So shoulders are in line with your wrists, knees under your hips. Come back first, hips and shoulders stay square. So back is flat. I don't want to see that, okay? Back stays flat. Hips and shoulders square. That end range of motion, that's where you're working. Super slow. So tendency on this, as I said, was to arch your back, and or so when you come out to the side, you rotate your hips. So I don't want rotation of the hips. So don't create more space by then going like this. So yes, I can get my knee all the way up there if I rotate, but I don't want to do that. I want to just focus my movement at the joint. So remember that ball and socket, you're moving that ball in the socket. That's where you're focusing on at your hips. It's nice seeing myself, actually. I get a little feedback. So you could do this in a mirror too if you wanted to. Or again, use a book or whatever you need to give a little feedback. Let's go 1 more. Super slow. How slow can you do this last one? Give it a little extra effort. Still breathing. All right, we'll go to the other direction. So draw that knee in, then you're gonna come out as far as you can. Give it a little extra effort and keep rotating around. It's helicopters again. Big circle, as big as you can make it, as slow as you can make it without compensating. We'll do a couple more. Go 1 more. All right, rock it out. Butt over your heels, shoulders over your wrists. Maybe this time through you want to drop into an up dog. Or maybe you just want to be right here. Maybe you want to make a big figure 8 with your rock. If you're doing a figure 8, make sure to go both directions. All right, so you're gonna come up, 1 knee up, 1 knee down. Hips and shoulders are square. So square those hips off, tuck those hips under. We're gonna work on our thoracic spine and kind of our hip complex at the same time. So your hips should be able to stabilize as other parts of your body move. And a lot of us, our thoracic spine's through here. A lot of us have limited range of motion here. So oftentimes it's hard to move and we end up moving our hips instead. So what you're gonna do is square those hips off, tuck those hips under, and keep those hips stable. If you need to put a pillow under your knee, you can. You're gonna reach for the sky. So hips stay square, and then where I'm rotating is right up here at my thoracic spine. Rotate over that front leg, keeping those hips square. Back to center, other side. Keeping those hips square. Back and forth. So I'm gonna face this way so you can see me. So hips and shoulders are square. What I mean by keeping them square is a lot of times we'll let this shift. So hips stay square, rotate over that front leg, keep those hips tucked under. And instead of allowing those hips to rotate out, keep them square and let your thoracic spine rotate back and forth. Up overhead and rotate. So shoulders stay away from your ears. Turn this way. Come up, rotate, back to center. Keep those hips square. Don't let those hips rotate. Maybe you want to add a little hip flexor stretch in between. Press those hips forward, reach back, back to center, rotate. Let's go one more each side. And then we'll flip. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So, hips and shoulders stay square, tuck those hips under, reach for the sky, rotate over that front leg. Thoracic spine is rotating. Rotate. So again, as much as you can, keep those hips facing forward. Don't let yourself rotate all the way at your hip. Hip complex stays square. Maybe it feels too hard overhead. You could always just come through the center right here. So if you start to feel tired and you start to feel like you're straining your neck, you don't want that. I don't want to strain other areas of your body to work on mobility or to strengthen or stretch or whatever we're doing, other parts of the body. So relax. If you need to drop down to here, you can drop down to right here. But you're moving that thoracic spine. Let's go one more each side. All right, back to that rocking. We'll go one more time through that. I made a big mess on my mat. Lots of leaves. So back to that rocking. This time I want you to turn those feet in towards each other and then turn those feet out. So toes in, toes out. Toes in, toes out. Toes in, toes out. Do the same thing with them pointed. Toes in, toes out. Let's go one more. We'll go back to tabletop and we'll do our controlled articular rotations at our hip complex. So we're going one more time through that. So again, super slow and controlled. Remember, as slow as you can go. Really work that end range of motion. So we'll go both directions, but stay one way and then we'll flip. Keep those hips and shoulders square. If it feels too much, you can also come down to your elbows and do the same thing. Or just play around with how that feels in a different position. Slow as you can go. Let's go one more. We'll do the other side. So again, hips and shoulders stay square. Core stays engaged. Moving slowly. All right, other direction. So you could do it how we did it last time up here. Super slow. Or you could come down here and see how that feels on your elbow to do the same thing, keeping those hips and shoulders square. Let's go one more and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Flip so you can see me. So come back, move super slow. The slower you go, the more controlled you go, the better. You can really focus on working every part of that range of motion and working that end range of motion. You also get a better sense of where you have the most restriction and where you need to work, right? So going back to listening to your body, that's really important. So slowing things down allows you to really feel and listen to your body. Maybe this time through, it feels a little bit more able to move because we already did it. Maybe you still feel tight, that's okay. Just take note. All right, let's go other direction. So if you're down on your elbows, don't sink down. Keep those shoulders away from your ears. Super slow and controlled. Couple more. Remember, wherever you feel like, okay, that's as far as I can go, give it a little extra effort or squeeze. Same thing all the way around. All right, rock forward and back. Shoulders over your wrist, butt over your heels, and then we'll come up. We'll do our thoracic spine. So square those hips off, tuck those hips under, reach for the sky, and rotate over that front leg. Hips stay square as you rotate other direction. So I'm reaching back. Rotation is happening up here, right? Not at my hips. Or you could stick to this motion right here. Whatever your body needs. Maybe you have a band and you want to band it. Give yourself a little resistance. Or you just stick with your body and move this way or this way. So one more each side. We'll do the other side. All right, same thing. Hips square, tuck those hips under. Maybe you want to hold and take a few deep breaths using your diaphragm. Whatever feels good for you is good for me. You can start to feel tension, like you're straining. Just slip to back and forth. A couple more. And last one. All right, come down to your knees. This time through, we're gonna rock, but we're gonna stick one leg out to the side. So we'll do some adductor rocking. Butt over your heels, shoulders over your wrists, but one foot is out to the side and planted. So get a little stretch and movement in that adductor, so right inside your leg. But you're still rocking, shoulders over your wrist and butt over your heel. So just sticking that leg out, getting a little adductor action. Do the same thing, other side. Stick that foot out and rock. Flip over. You can see me. So plant that foot, butt over your heels, shoulders over your wrist. Back and forth. Maybe you want to hold. Maybe you want to slow it down. Maybe you want to go faster. So play around with speed. Still breathing. We'll do a couple more. All right, back to center. So we are down to our knees and our ankles. Clean my mat up a little bit. Okay, we're gonna start sitting on our butts. So butt on our heels. I'm gonna bring one foot up. So my front foot is gonna be in line with my knee that's down on the ground, okay? Now, if this feels like too much, you can just scoot that foot forward a little bit, okay? If this feels like too much, you can come up on your toe. So, ideally, that front foot is in line with your knee. And we're gonna focus on our ankle. Obviously our knee is in flexion and then it'll go into extension too. But we're gonna focus our intention on our ankle, and we're gonna take our ankle through a whole range of motion as we rock forward and back. So it's another variation of rocking, but really working on our ankle mobility. So hands are extended, proud chest. As I rock forward, I'm taking this foot through that entire range of motion. Let that knee drop, and then sit those hips back, slowly come back to a seated position. So we're gonna rock forward, and we're gonna rock back. Again, we're focusing on that ankle, that planted foot. We'll go slow and controlled. So focus on that ankle. You can play around with where you drop your knee. You can drop it out to the side. You can drop it through the center. You could drop it towards the inside. See how that feels on your ankle. Maybe you even want to come out to the side with your hands and come out at an angle, or come to the other side and see how that feels. Do a couple more, and then we'll do the other side. Last one. Slow and controlled. All right, we'll flip. So I'm sitting on my butt. My opposite foot is planted, kind of in line with that front knee. Hands out in front of me, keep that proud chest. I'm rocking forward. So wrists are going, shoulders are over my wrists, dropping that knee between my hands. That ankle's coming through that entire range of motion. Go as slow as you need to go. And again, we can play around. You can drop your knee to the outside of your hand. You could drop your knee through the center like we've been doing. You could drop your knee to the inside. You could bring your whole body at a diagonal, either direction. So play around with that, see how that feels on your ankle, but we're rocking forward and back, focusing on that planted foot. Do a couple more. All right, last one. All right, you're gonna come to your hands and your knees. We're gonna hover hold, so come up on your toes and your hands, hover those knees, create as much tension as you can in your midsection. We're just gonna hold. Almost. Three, two, and one. We're gonna crawl forward and back. So you can baby crawl on your hands and your knees. You need a little break, or you could hover those knees and leopard crawl forward and back. Moving contralateral limb. So opposite arm, opposite leg. Couple more. And last time. All right, so we're gonna do that again. So plant that foot. I have made for a very dirty mat. We're gonna go forward and backward with our rocking, focusing on this ankle. So you could also play around with how far your foot is in front of your ankle. If my foot is a little, or in front of your knee, if my foot is a little further, I can come out and get a little stretch all the way up my kinetic chain, ankle, knee, hip. So you could play around with your foot and come all the way out. You could also play around with sitting back and rocking forward. Or you could just stick with the regular rocking we did. So focusing on that ankle. We'll do a little bit more of the other variations in other classes, but I just wanted to show you, you could play around and work kind of mobility all the way up our kinetic chain, right? Because everything works together. We don't typically just work one thing at a time as we move. It's all working in unison to support our movement, right? So how we train should be reflective of that. Do a couple more. Play around with the direction you go, with where you place your knee, with how close your foot is to your, and be in line with your knee. Let's go one more. And other side. Focus on your breath. Focus on how your body feels. Where do you feel restriction? Maybe the second time through you feel like you have a little more motion, a little more ease of movement, whatever. Or maybe you still feel tight, maybe you still feel restricted. That's okay, because we're gonna work on it. Couple more. Maybe this time you wanna go as slow as you can go. As slow as you can go. Play around with speed, play around with direction, do what feels good for your body. Let's go one more, and we'll go back to that tabletop position. So this time through, you have the option of just doing a hover hold, right? We just did that last time. Or you can work a little more explosively at your ankles and do some rocks to a stand. So you'll rock back, rock forward, and as you rock back, you're gonna hop up. So forward, and as you rock back, explode up and back. Rock. Rock back, forward. As you rock back, you're gonna come up. So pop off those ankles. Or you can just hover hold. Either way, we'll do one more. 3, 2, and 1. All right, last time through, we'll crawl. So you could do your baby crawl, or you could do your leopard crawl. Last time, down and back, and then come all the way down to the ground. Prop yourself up on your elbows. Take a few deep breaths here. In through your nose. Let that belly fully expand. Come all the way down. Hands are going to be at your chest. Squeeze your butt, squeeze your legs. We'll do some prone press-ups. Come up, drop those shoulders away from your ears. Hips stay on the ground. Slowly lower. Do a couple more, and then we'll take a few deep diaphragm breaths from our belly. Head on our hands. So fold those hands, one over top of the other. Head lays on your hands, and take 5 to 10 deep diaphragm breaths. In through your nose, let that belly fully expand. Out through your nose. Take one more breath, deep diaphragm breath. Hold it. And let it out. Come up to a seated position. We will finish right here with just 3 breaths together and say one thing to yourself that you need to hear today. So you know what that is. Same thing as last time. We'll just take 3 deep breaths in through your nose, let it all out through your mouth. We'll do that together, and on our 3rd breath, say what you need to hear. What that is for you might be different for me, right? Last time I said I am loved. It could be I am patient, I am strong, I'm creative, I am resilient, I am anything you need to hear, right? So as we're breathing together, just think of one thing that would help you through your day today or maybe your week, and say it to yourself, or you could say it out loud, and then we're finished with our movement practice for today. So you can close your eyes, you can leave them open, whatever you want to do. We'll take 3 breaths in through your nose, let it out, exhale, in through your nose, let it out, exhale, last one, in through your nose, let it out, exhale. I am patient. I hope you guys had a great practice today. I will see you back on Friday.